We are now live. How do I check if we are live on? Okay, ninganaki kakhulu nansalungisa izinto. Let's do it like this. Okay, I now want to check if it's showing already on Facebook. Yes, you're live on Facebook. All right. And then I'm going to go to check YouTube now. YouTube, I don't know, because it just shows me alone. Did you receive two invitations or just only one?
Just the one with Pat.
Just the one. Okay. So
I used the link that you sent on WhatsApp.
Okay. All right. We're gonna try something here. I've just sent through to you another link for YouTube, né? So if you can just try and join through that link as well, so that we can make sure ukuthi zombie is in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you sent it on email as well with that?
Yes. Yeah. I can see Amanda.
Yeah, I'm in both.
Yes. Okay. Oh, okay. I think what we're gonna do, I don't think it's gonna work because they have this sound. Okay.
Do we need to do in both?
Okay, don't worry about it. A1 is enough so that we don't have a confusion and a lot of noise and things like that. Okay. But I think we will be able to record on both.
So it's only streaming on Facebook.
Yeah, it's possible when but a problem might be on my side because I'm not technically clued up. There's not even a need. There's not even a need for Uber need to twice. So I think because in terms of the package, it's supposed to be recording on both.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll play it by ear. We're learning every day. Okay. All right. We're learning every day. Let's just wait for people to join.
We are live on YouTube, Bupet.
Oh, are we? Okay. Okay. That's good. So Abanyabandi will join as we go along. And I know that other people, you know, like the one I was speaking to now is still traveling. They're still on the way. So we'll get started as soon as we can. So let's just wait for about 2 more minutes and then we get started. I'm Foganda Bambi. I can see you. Welcome. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Nagwesiti Molweni. It would be good to see if there may be even among our listeners or viewers, people that can predict the score tonight. The final score tonight. Tini and Abambi, what do you think the score is going to be? You think England is going to win? And my money is on England because I have a guest who lives there now.
Go England.
Okay. All right, I think let's get started, friends. We don't have a lot of time. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's warm out here in Joburg. You know, in London, Ntando was telling us that it is also summer there. So people might want to go out into the summer day and enjoy themselves. Let me just welcome all our viewers, those who are viewing us on Facebook and those who are viewing us on YouTube channel. And I know that some of you may not be viewing us now, but people are going to watch us later after they've done their things. But it is always a privilege and an honor for me to host these conversations, because the purpose of this conversation is to really transform real lives. It's you can not imagine the changes that people experience as a result of these encounters. And so I don't take your attendance and your participation lightly. Privilege indeed for us to do this. I'd like to welcome everyone to this session. It's called Equipped for Anything, Everywhere. Wow, what a topic. And the purpose of these sessions really is to inspire, inform, educate, and motivate people, especially Black young people, with this idea that with God on your side, with hard work, with intentionality, with support from family and other people, but with hard work and effort, there's nothing that's impossible. It does not matter what background you're coming from. It does not matter what challenges in your life you faced. There is nothing that's impossible on this earth. And we do this by profiling and looking at the lives of people who are whose life stories, ordinary people like you and me, whose life stories are inspiring, full of lessons for us to learn. And so today I feel honored to host such people, two people that that I will be talking about today. They're young, determined, fresh, and really eager to take on the world. And in fact, they've already started taking on the world even now. I'm talking here about Amanda Simakani and Ntando Siswana. Amanda is a functional head for client experience um, at Discovery Health. She is responsible for oversight as well as the implementation of strategic projects and initiatives. Just think about that. You look at her face. You don't link her with that big responsibility like that. Uh, you know, uh, you think that, oh man, Sandupume High School, Gandhi, no. Uh, and these projects are aimed at optimizing our experience as clients. Some of us are on Vodacom and so on. Sorry, Discovery Health. Or sorry about that. And she is responsible for optimizing that client experience and other customer services strategies within Discovery Health. And Ntando Siswana is a banking and finance lawyer who is based in the London office of the transatlantic law firm Womble, Bond and Dickinson, and um, which is a firm in which he regularly advises banks, private equity firms, and corporates on a number of issues. I think he's going to tell us about that right now. And he was admitted as an attorney of the High Court of South Africa and a solicitor of the senior courts of England and Wales. Maybe when you have a moment, just tell us the difference between these two. It's interesting.
Okay.
And outside of the law, by the way, Ntando is also involved in business. He's a director and chairman of the board of Mocholo Investment Holdings, which is based in the UK, as well as sitting on another investment committee of Tsogang Investment Holdings, which is an investment company which is based here in South Africa. And so, help me welcome these powerful people here and welcome them. Ntando and Amanda, welcome. Please say hi to our viewers.
Inkosi
Thank you.
Buthet, siyabulisa.
All right. Thank you so much. Kubulisa mna kubulela mna ngaphezu koko. We really appreciate the time that you took to spend with us for the next. And by the way, these conversations are legacy conversations. Many people over years are going to be watching them. And even maybe your children, you never know, your siblings and so on, who are not able to do that now, they will do that. And so we'll learn today a bit more about you. And I'd like to encourage those of you who are watching on Facebook or YouTube to please write your questions. We're going to try and read them as much as possible, and ask our colleagues. You can start, in fact, sending those questions now. Some of you know these people, and you may want to ask a specific question that is related to what we're going to be talking about today. And but more than anything, I'd like to encourage all of you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Gulati Coaching and Consulting. Please subscribe to that, because there are so many other things that are happening there that are intended for personal and leadership growth and in many areas of life. And so this particular discussion and the one that we did last week is going to go there. Please apologies to those people who wanted to see the one that we did last week with Sanda. We had some challenges, technical glitches, but we are going to transfer it soon. sooner rather than later to the YouTube channel. Now, let's get on with it, guys. Let's get on with it. You've been waiting here patiently for a while. Now, before we start to talk about this topic that we have sketched out today, I think our viewers would like to know a bit about you personally. Just a little bit about your background, where you grew up, schools that you went to, just a little bit about you so that we can know who we're talking about here. Some of us are going to identify, and some of us can say, oh, we didn't know about this, but this is what's important. So would you like to start, Amanda?
Sure. I'd like to welcome our viewers. Thank you for taking the time, and really excited to share my journey with you. So I am Zimbabwean born, came to South Africa when I was very young, grew up in Tata, in a place called Southernwood. Did most of my primary schooling there at Southernwood Primary School. So it was, I wouldn't say right around the corner, but it was still in the same neighborhood, quite a bit of a distance to walk, but not too far. Remained Mtata until I was about 13 years old. And then we moved to Cape Town with my mom. Very weird space in my life because, you know, as a kid, all you're thinking about is I'm leaving my friends behind. I'm going to this place. I know no one. I don't want to go, you know, but there was no choice. We had to pick up, we had to go. So I moved to Cape Town. I was doing grade 6 at the time. So last 2 years of my primary school, I did them here at a school called Welcome Primary School in Welcome Estates. I then finished primary and went to Good Hope Girls High, Good Hope Seminary Girls High. That's where I did my high school. And it was a pleasant experience. I enjoyed high school very much. And I think throughout that time as well, being in Cape Town, there was church that was very central in our lives, where really got involved in a lot of activities that really contributed to who you are and who you got to be. That's where I met Ntando as well. Really excited to be sharing this space with him today. And yeah, hi. Family-wise, I'm one of 5 girls.
Okay.
So come from quite a big family. I think my parents kept, you know, trying for that boy, but at some point they had to accept that it's not going to happen.
He's not coming.
Not meant to be. So I think 5 had to be the cutoff, and my baby sister is called Ntombi Zodwa, and I think then that's when they accepted that. Okay,
Yeah.
this is what it is. So that's my immediate family, and then obviously I've got my cousins. My mom was one of 9 siblings, also girls, by the way.
Wow.
So this girl thing is a thing. So I obviously have a lot of cousins who are really, you know, your sisters. So family perspective, I really come from a big family. When we have events, we don't need to invite anyone else because by ourselves we are enough. We fill the room. So that's essentially my primary and high school years.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Ntando.
My name is Ntando Siswana. I was born in a small town in Transkei called Butterworth, Eto.
Oh, Eto.
Yes, and that is where I grew up as a young boy, and my life was spent in the township. I grew up in a township called Cuba in Butterworth, and my family was made up of my mom, and later on, I think 11 years after I was born, my sister joined. And I grew up with my cousin, Wakona. This thing of cousins is quite foreign to us because I met him as my brother, but yeah, we grew up in a very modest home in Butterworth. We lived in a single room for the longest of times, renting in the back rooms of Cuba Township until my mom bought a site in one of the rural areas near Butterworth, and made our home there. I went to I would argue, the best schools that I could go to in Butterworth, not because we were well-to-do, but my mother really sacrificed to make sure that with the little that she could afford as a single parent who's looking after a large extended family, that I could get the best shot at life. And that was, my early years. So I went and I matriculated at Butterworth High School, and that's briefly my background and my formative years.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's very interesting, because both of you are mentioning your mothers, parents, and families that played a role in who you are, and I think that's a good point, maybe to make a marker to say how important family is as a launching pad for where people finally become. And so, and then Amanda, you started talking about the role of church in your life. And I know that Ntando as well, church played a big role in your life as well. Just briefly, as we pass on this part, tell us about that. What values and what principles did you learn from that experience?
So,
okay, I'll go for it, Amanda. I can see Rhythm Patwam is giving me the cue there.
Yeah.
I think for me, church has always been front and center in my life. Perhaps not church so much, but my Christian faith.
Yeah.
I was raised in a Christian home by my mother. She went to Sunday school, and the whole spiel of going to church every Sunday. But I think when I turned 14 or 15, that is when the faith became my own thing. When I was personally convicted of the Christian faith, and I was always been very active in the church. I mean, I was the president of the SCO at school. They used to tease me. They used to call me Pastor. That was my nickname in high school, Pastor, because I was the SCO president in university as well. I think I'm in the history of the NMM Youth DASM.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only person who has served as DASM chairperson for 2 terms. So
this leadership thing has been with you for a while.
Yeah. No, I've really been always active in church. And I to go to your question with Pat, I think for me, it has protected me from a lot of things which, as a young boy growing up in the townships and later growing up in an impoverished background in the rural areas of Butterworth, it protected me from a lot of the things which people my age were exposed to. I did not, it was not because of my own wisdom that I did not become perhaps a druggie or fall into the traps of teenage pregnancy or the traps of alcohol abuse and all the other challenges with which young people my age fell into. And looking back and reflecting on my life right now, I owe a lot of that to the fact that I was leading a Christian lifestyle which was incompatible with those pitfalls, and that's what I can say.
Thank you, Ahmad.
I think for me, church and Christianity and growing up in a Christian home really helped in helping me identify who I was. Although in my early years that wasn't fully formed yet, and I'll talk about that later, but at least that seed, right, of I am God's child, was planted then, and the values that I live by, the principles that we live by, concepts of, humility, and just verses that and lessons that would come across, when you're having family prayer, things like everything that you do, you're doing it to the glory of God. Those are things that would constantly be repeated within the family. When you're a child, it's not really that, of that much consequence, but when you get out of the home, all of those lessons really come back, and you really find that you have a place to draw from. So I'm really, really grateful for that those early lessons. And I'm also grateful that I grew up in an environment that encouraged me to read for myself, right? And I think being SDA, you are different from everyone else, right? You're at school and everyone goes to church on a Sunday. And you're going to be asked the questions, why do you go to church on a Saturday? So from a very early age, you are taught to defend your faith. Not that it needs, God's truth doesn't need you to defend it, right? But you are taught to explain why that is the case. And that really drives you to understand it for yourself. It drives you to read the Bible, really, really encouraged from a young age to read it for myself, understand it for myself, apply it for myself. And the beautiful thing about the Bible is that it never gets old, right? Verses that you've known since you were a kid and recited over and over, all of a sudden in your 30s have a totally new meaning, right?
Yeah.
It's really been a journey, and I think the most important thing is knowing that God is someone I can go to. God exists. He is part of my life. He is not some concept that is far away. He is with you and in you, and I'm very, very grateful for those early lessons.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I'm asking these questions because there's a body of literature that's coming out that says, for a long time in corporates and big places, spirituality has been eliminated from people's lives as if people are just corporate animals. But it's important to actually understand the overall, as much as this platform is not about promoting this or that religion, but we have to understand the person in totality. That's why I ask those questions, because how you show up in the world is anchored in the values that you grew up with. But thank you so much for that. Now I want us to transition towards your tertiary education. And Ntando, you went to Port Elizabeth and NMB, is that right? And Amanda, you went to Cape Town. Tell us about what you did there. How was that experience? What courses were you did there, and all of that, and what qualifications did you achieve?
So I think my journey with tertiary was a bit of a roller coaster. And I think for me, that was really the defining moment in my life. Firstly, from the time that I had to decide what to study, it was a back and forth, this or that. So I really, really struggled. And I remember my mom like printing pages and pages from work of different career options to try and help her daughter who does not know what she wants. And things changed, right? When I was in grade 10, I wanted to be an architect. I even did job shadowing at an architect firm. Then I realized, no, this is not for me. And I moved on from that. Grade 11, I did my community service at Red Cross because I was like, now I'm going to be a doctor. And then I was like, no, also that's not for me. And then I settled on law. And then I'm going to study law. Applied at the University of Cape Town, got in. Now, the story of me going to UCT, it was a bit of a, So my dad is a lecturer, and he lectures at NMMU. And my dad was like,
Ntando's alma mater.
Yes.
Exactly.
And my dad was like, my plan was that I'm going to stay in these universities so that my kids can benefit from it, right? I want you to. But me that I was back then was not having any of it. And I think having been, throughout high school, I was an academic achiever. My blazer was full of A's, academic colors. And I think I got obsessed with the idea of ranking. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but I think I had attached a sense of who I am to which schools I go to, which university I go to. Although the young me at the time didn't realize it, but I would not. I was like, I don't want to go to NMMU. I've been accepted at UCT. I want to go to UCT. Why won't you let me go to UCT? Although financially UCT didn't make sense. From the go, UCT never made sense financially at all. But
because you were going to be studying for free in NMU because your father was there. Am I right? Or at a discounted rate?
I think it was going to be at a discounted rate. Right?
Yes,
and it's cheaper to begin with.
Yes.
Almost half the cost, right?
But I was like, nope. And I'm grateful for the fact that my parents, their parenting style they teach you, right? They've never been those strict parents that are like, this is what's going to happen, and they forced what they needed to force. But when it came to things where you could make your own decision, they allowed you to make your own decision, right? They were like, this is your career, this is your life, you make your decision. You go where you want to go. We'll try support you as best we can, but you go where you want to go. Obviously, Dad's not happy with me at that point, but I was like, got accepted into the top university in Africa. I'm going. Great. Go to
And that's when you did your law.
That's where I started my law. I didn't finish my law there because obviously reality caught up with me.
Yeah.
Went there, did my first year, second year, finances was not happening. And I think what happened was initially when I applied, right, because I wasn't born in South Africa, somehow, I don't know, I think it was during the talks that we got at school, but at some point I was misinformed and led to believe that I could not apply for financial aid because of that, right? So I never tried, right? Only to discover later that actually I can, right? But at the time I've got historical debt. And now financial aid is not going to cover your historical debt plus your future debt.
It takes from where you are forward.
Yes. And at some point, my aunt assisted me to get like a bursary, but that fell through the cracks. I can't even understand it. But there's so many obstacles to this UCT journey that some of them didn't even make sense. Like some of them absolutely made zero sense. But I remember having to make the decision, which was probably one of the hardest decisions I'd ever made. When you've prayed about something and you've begged God and you've tried, sometimes you try to manipulate him as well, try to manipulate him where you think you can. And that realization that God is saying no. When you pray, the answer can be yes or no. That now you can't run away from the fact that God has answered you. He's just said no. The answer is no. Like when that final appeal for this financial aid and this covering of this historical debt, when you got to the highest place, you can't appeal from here. And they said no. And I was like, I had to accept that this is not going to happen. And I had to make the decision to continue my studies through UNISA. And at that point, really, I think I'm grateful now for that experience because
they say hindsight is the best teacher.
2020, like hindsight is 2020. When I look at the kid me now, I'm like, it makes sense. And I'm grateful that there were certain things, right, that God had to correct in my character. And I'm glad that he did it then when I was young, right? And I'm glad that he stripped me of all of the things that I was attached to then.
We're gonna come back. We're gonna pick up from there just now. I just want to make sure that we bring Ntando along so that we can move together from university now forward. Ntando.
Yeah, for me, I think I knew pretty early on that I wanted to study law.
Okay.
Even when I was at school, I was always, watching these guys in robes going to court. I'm like, hey, what is that about? I thought, they look really cool. And I started doing a lot of research about, the career. And I remember in our computer labs at university, there was some aptitude test that we would take that was asking questions about you and the things you like and your competencies. And it would pull up possible careers that you should pursue. And law was always at the top.
Okay.
And so for me, I was pretty certain early on that I wanted to study law. And then the question was, study law where?
And UNITRA had a good law faculty as well, eh?
Exactly, right. But the truth of the matter is perceptions when it comes to selecting a university, they do matter because they determine the kind of fields that you will be able to enter into. And the reason I went to NMMU was purely financial. It was the best university that I could afford to get into. And I started, with my LLB degree, and I was actually doing very well in the qualification. I was always, that, I don't know how to put it, but I was always chajarach. about my future career and my prospects. I think I started applying for jobs within a few months of starting university. I was sending out emails to say, hey, can I come for verification work? Can I come for, can I come and shadow, you in your law firm? And they were like, right, you've not even finished the semester. Can you slow down, right? But actually, in as much as we laugh about it now, that actually paid off because I was probably one of the only LLB students in my year that had job offers lined up in my second year of university already.
Okay.
Most people were only starting to apply for articles in their third and their fourth years. But because I knew that, look, I am my only solution. No one is going to come for me. If I'm not deliberate and intentional about looking and seeking out opportunities, no one is going to come for me. And so I was very intentional when it came to looking for opportunities when I was still in university. And yeah, I think that was my university experience.
Okay. Just briefly, what sort of courses? I mean, you did finance law and banking. Am I right? Finance and banking law. What is that composed of?
Well,
briefly.
I did not do a course called finance and banking law. I don't know what exists.
Okay.
I did a normal LLB, which every other student does. Now, the beautiful thing about law as a career is that it is so versatile. It opens up so many opportunities and avenues that you can pursue. So the area of law that you will specialize in is not determined by the courses that you took during your law degree, but it is largely influenced by the law firm where you do your if you end up deciding to become an attorney, or if you want to become an advocate, by the advocate that you are a pupil under. So for me, banking and finance, perhaps to paint how I came into banking and finance law, in my insolvency law class, I can't remember whether that was in my third year or in my fourth year, we had an assignment which had to do with what would happen if a South African bank were to go insolvent. Now, remember, this is insolvency law. This is not banking law. And that's when my interest, or that was my first exposure to this thing. Oh, there's something called banking law. There's something called, the Banks Act. There's something called, the Reserve Bank Act. And all of that was my first exposure to the subject. And then, remember, I told you in my first year already, I was knocking on law firms' doors for vacation schemes. And I went to VAC work at Bowman's, ENS, and a number of other law firms. And I was introduced to banking and finance as a practice area. And I fell in love with it instantly. And then when I did my articles, I went straight into the banking and finance team, and the rest is history.
Okay. Oh, wow. That's very interesting, because I thought there was a course called law and banking law and so on. And now we're going to come back to you just now, Amanda, because we left you off when you were at basically a point where you now have to stop studying at UCT, and you had to go to UNISA. I just want to read a couple of messages that are coming through on Facebook for now, so that we can make sure that people are with us. We've got Ntando Ndabambi. Hey, Uti, England is going to win. It may be in penalties. See, Sipukolo Mazwi, intentionality is just, she's quoting on what you were saying, and I think that's very, very important. Intentionality. You use the word Njanjarach, but you can have a positive spin to that word. It's about being curious, being intentional, and so on. And Uzandile, a Christian, say you are hosting greatness, Prapet. You hear what people are saying, and I agree. Utus Potolo Kona Jonga Transkai produces leaders. Was very inspired by Mr. Siswana when I first met him in the UK. Yo, the Sika Ipate. Nankuzanele Meshomakun. That's true, Putpet. your faith is key in facing the world. Nangu umama ulinda nqini, unaledi Mulope Surudu, and 5 others I cannot see here. All right, there are many people that have joined now who are actually being really inspired by what we are saying. So far, we've sort of traversed your early time, and we moved to your spiritual influences, and now we are now at a university stage. And let's pick up where you left off, Amanda. What then happened? Did you do the same course at UNISA? And please tell me about that interesting story that you shared with me and with us when we were at Tembi's place at this point in your life.
So, so at this point, I, registered through UNISA. But first I had to figure out, right, because I made this decision to come to UCT and it's not working out. I need to own my decision, right?
Okay.
Because the flip side of being allowed to make your decision in our household is that you own it. Now I need to own my decision. UNISA doesn't pay for itself also, right?
Okay.
So now I need to find a job. Right. I'd already been exposed to working when I was, at UCT. There was this call center that many students used to work on. After you've had your car serviced, you get someone that calls you, how was your service? How did it go? Were you happy with the way your car was cleaned? I was one of those people. So at least I'd already been exposed to call center, so it's the only job experience I have. Like there's nothing else that I have. So call center made sense. I worked for this call center at it was based in Waterfront. It was a company that was outsourced to an American airline. So you basically do reservations for your Delta Airlines, your KLM Airlines, and so forth. So the hours are terrible, right? Because we're based here and it's shift work, right? So here I am, I'm trying to study, and here I am also. Sometimes your shift could start at, 9 or maybe at 10 and end at 7 a.m. in the morning. So it was very much of a transition. But I think one thing that, when I got into that transition, one thing that helped me, right, was that my mother always said, whatever you do, whether you are a street sweeper, if you're a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper there is, right? Whatever you do, excellence is not only reserved for certain areas. It's a thing wherever, right? So that was my first call center experience, but I really struggled with the hours. Getting home sometimes was tough. I don't have transport. I remember there was a 10 p.m. Golden Arrow bus that you would take, and it's full of people, right? But when I'm dropping off a mobile, most of these people are going to college and so forth, which means when I drop off a mobile, I'm the only one, right? And security took me home, so it was difficult, but it was a point where I'm like, I need to do what I need to do, right? I'm not going to let not having a degree was not an option. Like it was not an option at home. It was not an option for me, right? And at this point, I really just focused on what is it that I need to do to move forward. And right now, this is all I have. And so I poured heart and soul into it. I then, I was looking for...
Are you there? Hey, man.
Yes, I'm still here.
At that time, I was looking for other call centers as well, because this hours thing is not really working out for me. That's how I ended up at Discovery. Got into Discovery as a call center agent. Firstly, in my first application at Discovery, they rejected me. I passed all the assessments, but I failed the role play, right?
Okay, I lost you a little bit there. I don't know what happened because my internet was on, but you carried on. You said
we lost you for a second, but I think the rest of us were with.
We continue.
Okay. Yes. All right. Okay. Go ahead, Amanda.
So got into Discovery the second time round. The first time round, I passed the numeric assessments, the psychometric assessments, which is where most people fail. I passed all of that. I got to the last step, which is the role play. We're going to pretend to, this is a call. Now you need to respond, that type of thing. I failed that. And I was like, really, out of all the things you're going to fail this one. And then they said, you can only apply. Yeah, no. They're like, you can only apply again in 6 months. I was like, great. And for me, I tried to tell myself that the call center that I was working in was very different, right, in terms of the type of queries they handled. Right, I was like, okay, at least I've gotten a glimpse of, what work is being done here. 6 months time, I'm back, and true to form, 6 months time, I applied again. This time, I made it. I got into discovery, and at that time, my intention really was, I just need to be here. I just need to do my best just so that I can finance my independent living, because I was living by myself, and pay my fees. Once I'm done with my qualifications, I'm gone. That was the initial, that was the initial plan. And I think one thing that I learned, through this whole period of having to leave UCT, I did a lot of introspection, right? Because this thing that I'd attached my sense of worth to was being stripped away from me, right? My career was under threat. So I had to ask myself, who am I if I'm not the girl that graduates from the top university in Africa? Who am I if I'm not the top shot lawyer that I thought I was going to be? Who am I if I'm not the girl that finishes university in record time? So all of those things, and I had a career of academic excellence, and my father is a lecturer, right? I when I would go to dad's work, I'd be going to a university. So all of these things are things that I grew up around, that I'd kind of thought it was like a no-brainer, like that's what I needed to do. But now all of these things are being threatened, right? And I'm not understanding why they're being threatened, because it's not like I'm slacking, it's not like I'm lazy. And I think that I really got dug deeper into. I remember thinking to myself, going back to read Genesis 1 verses 1, because I'd gotten to a point where I was even asking myself, who am I and why am I here? Like, why am I here? Because at that stage in university, we're very fragile, right? It's the point where we establish our identity. I'm no longer the child in my mother's house. I am coming into my own, right? We want to establish our own identity. So we're very fragile at that point. And I think that's where, the devil usually uses that point to give you a false sense of identity that most people unfortunately carry on to, I don't. So really at that point, I had to try and understand, who am I? And I was like, okay, fine. When all else fails, go back to the beginning. Like, let's read Genesis when I was made. And the Bible that I had at the time was a teen version Bible that would have commentary and explanations. And next to that chapter, there was a description that said, trying to explain creation. There was an explanation that said, we were what God created when God decided to love and be loved. We were what God created when God decided to be in relationship, right? So I'm like, okay, my essence then is to be in relationship with God, because that's why I was created, right? And I think from that point, my relationship with God got stronger, because that was all I had, really. Everything else just seems to be threatened. I was angry at that point, but luckily in my anger, I never pulled away from him, because going back to my childhood, I'd been raised in such a way that I know for a fact that God exists and God cares, right? And I can't divorce myself from the concept of a God. I can't, So I really, I think God really worked with me at that point to really make me understand that my worth is not in any of these things, right? All of these things, you are not in any of them. And I think through that experience, he was trying to show me that I'm going to take away all of these things that you think give you a sense of worth, and I'm going to take you on a journey so that you can truly discover who you are. So I'm entering discovery at a point where I'm going through this journey with God, right? I'm already starting to become bold in terms of who I am, and my essence as God's child, right? And my worth, my intrinsic worth, that is not defined by what I do, because I didn't grow up thinking I want to work in a call center. That wasn't my goal, right? I need to understand that, because I'm sitting here on this chair, and mind you, my peers are excelling, they're graduating, they're moving on, and we're still friends, right? I see this, and I'm a very private person, right? So I'm not the type of person who's going to talk through everything that I'm going through. Some decisions, even when I left UCT, I didn't announce it. I didn't say, hi guys, I'm leaving, this is the reason, whatever. Like, I didn't do that. I just did my thing, did whatever I needed to do. So I entered discovery in that space. And one thing also that I learned, like through reading and just meditating, was that you have choices in life, right? When there's something that you don't like, you can either accept it, right, or change it. And when you're accepting it, you're accepting the fact that for now this is how it has to be, because I can't change it. Or if you can change it, then change it. But the thing is, when you are accepting it, you need to accept it as if you had chosen it. Don't accept it like being grumpy. No, accept it as if you had chosen this path. So I went into a call center with the attitude of someone who grew up dreaming to work in a call center. Because that's what I needed to do for my own sanity.
For your own sanity. Okay,
For my
we'll pick it up again from there. You know, I didn't realize that you can talk as much as you do.
Looks are deceiving, the pet. Looks are very deceiving.
and just forgive me there, because I just need to make sure that we make sure that we carry along. So now you are at this point where you are now working for a discovery call center, and we're going to pick it up from there, because it's very interesting story, because now you are a functional head at Discovery Health. When you started off as a call center agent, just hold that thought. Ntando, let's come to you. At your earliest working experience, you're now here, you've done your university degree, you're now working. And because I think I met you for the first time in Cape Town. And then you even invited me to come and talk at some other men's meeting. But tell us about how your work life started off.
Yeah, I actually wish I had met Amanda earlier on in my life. Because I needed that call center job when I was in university. I was doing a lot of part-time jobs myself in university. I was an invigilator, I was a marker, not just in the law society. I was even hustling into other faculties. I was also an invigilator and a marker in the IT department. So, yeah. Student life, I know all too well about, that experience of having to manage being a student on the one side and also, making money to get by. But to come to your question, but Pat, so after I graduated with my LLB degree, I had a few options. And thankfully, because like I said, I was very when I was in university. I was really hustling so that I can have the choice where to from here. In my mind, coming from the rural areas of Butterworth, I remember when I first arrived in PE in a taxi with my big suitcases, and I'm seeing these roads that are going on top of each other, and I'm saying, hey, what have I gotten myself into here? This is a big city. I'm just giving you how I was perceiving things at the time, and that takes you into my mind.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I had, so whilst I was in university, I had the opportunity to go to Johannesburg for a vacation scheme in one of the big law firms. And when I got to Sentin, I said, this is where I want to make my career. I thought if you go to Sentin, yes. And I was so fortunate that I had a job offer from one of the law firms which are based in Sentin, and I had another offer from another South Africa-wide law firm which had offices in Sentin as well, but the opportunity was in the Cape Town office. And I felt, all things considered, that Cape Town would be a better lifestyle fit for me. For many reasons, I decided to go to the law firm which was giving me an opportunity in Cape Town. And I then started as a candidate attorney in the banking and finance team. Now that was at ENS. And the difference between the training contract at ENS was that if you are placed in a team, let's say you're placed in litigation, or you are placed in insolvency or banking and finance, that is where you are going to stay for the duration of your articles, your 2 years. Unless there's a reason why you want to move, and then you can be moved. Whereas with other law firms, you basically rotate every 6 months. You are in litigation, next 6 months you are in corporate, commercial, etc., etc. So I quite liked that, because I was sure that I wanted to do banking and finance. So if I was going to be doing 2 years banking and finance, and then it felt to me like the right move. So it was not haphazard how I came to ENS Cape Town and in banking and finance. It was something I really did think through. And I then finished my articles in the same team. I was then retained as an associate, which means as a qualified lawyer in the same team. And I practiced law until I moved to London. And I got to do some really interesting and exciting work whilst at ENS. And I was, I remember at the time I mentioned to Amanda that we were working on the Discovery banking license application at the time. Discovery. And so, really, really exciting work that I got to do, both in terms of banking and finance. And then there was only one time when I was not doing banking and finance, and that's when I got pulled into the Sri and Diwani murder case, which was.
I wanted to ask you about that one, but that was a big case, eh?
Yes.
And you were relatively a young lawyer at the time.
I had absolutely no litigation experience. How I got roped into that case, it's all public information now, so I can talk about it a bit more freely.
By the way, just before you move there, Shirin Diwani was that lady who was killed by her husband when she came here for a wedding thing.
No. Let me stop you right there.
Oh, okay. Tell me.
Let us frame it correctly. Srian Diwani is the gentleman that was accused of having hired people to murder his wife, Annie Diwani.
Oh, yes. That's it.
Thank you. And he was acquitted on those charges. So how I came to be on the case was I was happily doing my banking and finance work, and there was some CCTV footage which was in isiXhosa, and this had been transcribed, but the transcription was not making sense. It was too much of a translation. And so they said, can you just look at this again and produce your own transcription as a lawyer and also someone who speaks the language? And so that was supposed to be a very narrow piece of work for me. And then I go back to my normal banking work. And so I did that. And to cut a long story short, out of that piece of work that I did, the client, Mr. Diwani, and his brother, who was also a lawyer, said, look, we've got to have you on this case. And I said, I want nothing to do with murder trials. You're not in good hands with me. I'm a banking and finance lawyer. But long story short, they managed to put pressure on my boss at the time, Clinton, to convince me to work on the case. Initially, I was working on the criminal case and then coming back to my desk late in the evening and working on my banking stuff until I ended up just doing the case exclusively during the trial. And what happened was there was a litigation lawyer who had been working on the trial, and I was additional to them. But somewhere along the trial, they then were removed from the case, and I ended up now being a non-litigation lawyer, effectively project managing it from the attorney side. But it worked out in the end. the outcome was positive, and we won the case.
That's very interesting, Ntando, because sometimes people sort of get straitjacketed into whatever they're doing and not being exposing themselves to opportunities. And I'm just fascinated by the link, how the link started for you to be involved. I mean, you're a Xhosa speaker, you know a bit about the language, and somehow you got involved in one of the biggest cases. And I think, and I do want us to put some markers, because as we go along, we just want to make sure that these things sink in our heads. So the words that you guys are using here, the words like deliberate, Ntando, intentional, chantarach, and those words. But also, Amanda, you used the words like you had to own the decisions that you took. Those are very important principles to take away for people that own decisions, because sometimes people don't own their own decisions and they find themselves blaming everyone. You talked about some things like excellence, that as you were growing up, these things were excellent. So excellence were quite important. So I want us to make sure that we highlight those issues. I'm going to come back to you now, Amanda, so that you can pick us up now to how you finally became what you are doing now. But I do want you to finish that little bit of a story of your entry into this thing. And then let me just read the messages here. Maud Matanda is watching. Dr. Maud, welcome. Nangu Umaleshwane Thabang, hello Sisi, good to see you. Yay, university life and life challenges, profound. Amanda and Ntando duo, thank you, Prophet. Uluthando Ndabambi uthi Amanda, amen. Nagusia Sanga Ndwayana is watching. Anda Nusani is Tim Kulowa, great conversation. Umtu is learning a lot here. I wish those that are still in high school can watch these conversations. They are opening up our eyes and widening our views. Thank you so much. And by the way, if you have sisters and brothers and uncles and cousins, please ask them to watch this. Zama Charity Tanzana is watching. Nanko Ebuya Umaleshwane saying, I'm going to share this with my cousin later. Thank you. It's truly eye-opening. Good to see you, Sisi. Great interview, Pupet. Thank you so much. For those of you who have sent something that I may have missed, please forgive me. And my device does not allow me to see all the messages that come through. Apologies for that. Now, I need to make sure that I keep track of time, because I forget that. We're running really out of time. But let's pick it up where you left off, Amanda. You are working in this agency. What course now are you doing? And also just fast track us how your journey briefly went through to where you are now as a functional head at Discovery.
So as I was working at Discovery, I worked through my BCom and my LLB. At some point, I realized that I did not want to practice law. I wanted to be in corporate, but I still wanted the LLB. So I completed a BCom and I completed an LLB all through.
At UNISA, is that right?
At UNISA, correct.
Okay.
At UNISA,
okay.
All while working. So I was studying and working at the same time. So just my journey to where I am now. So I came in as a call center agent, was there for 3 months, moved into a different team, still as a call center agent. I think I moved to a team that was more aligned with what I enjoyed because I wasn't really feeling inspired where I was. I looked around, I was like, okay, there's the chronics, HIV and oncology. I've always been a biology and a science person. I've always enjoyed that. Moved into that team. Really felt more inspired, worked hard, was a serial top performer. Like I answered those calls like the world depends on it, right? So I was really a serial top performer. And then from there, I think I then moved to becoming a team leader. I don't know if you guys can still see me.
There's a bit of a glare that's coming through your face. It looks okay.
Okay, maybe let's do this.
All right,
okay.
That's much better. Yeah.
So in terms of growth,
try and find yourself in the center if you can.
There we go.
Okay, that's it. Yeah.
So in the call center, you've got different levels, right? You've got call center consultant, senior call center consultant. You've got all of those ranks, and then you have team leader. I skipped all of those ranks. I went straight from the entry level into team leader because as as I was a call center agent, I was already, second in charge from my team leader. I was a top performer, so I'd take initiative to coach other agents. And I remember in my interview, they asked me, how have you equipped yourself, to be a leader and whatever? And my answer is, I'm already a leader. I just don't have to. So, and I think when I applied to be a team leader, that's when I decided that as much as my initial goal was to come here, finish your studies and leave, I realized this place that I was in. I was like, I'm in an optimal environment to actually grow, because Discovery is a big corporate. It's got a lot of opportunities. So I made the decision then to grow within the company. That's when I applied to become a team leader. Even as a team leader, was really, really excelled at what I do. Within a couple of months of being a team leader, I was being already put on leadership development programs that were designed for people that are being groomed for the next role. And I'd only been in my role for a couple of months, right? Wow. Probably the newest team leader there was at the time. So, and I really embraced these opportunities. And now the thing was, the next move now from team leader is service manager, right? Where you run your street, your area of the call center. But I knew that that's not the part that I want, because I was curious. I was like, in Cape Town, this is just a service center, right? There's a lot to Discovery. There's a lot that happens in the background, and that happens at head office. Like, what do those people do? I want to know what those people do. And I think
it seems as if there's this one character that you both share, with that of being Chancharach. I can see that.
Yeah, no, it was
more. Being hungry for more, yes.
And also because I studied law, I wanted to get compliance, right? And I was like, compliance is the head office, right? So I need to find a bridge between where I am that's going to get me to compliance. So I'd start researching, what's out there, what are the roles. And what helped was that as team leaders, they would put us through, the company invested a lot in its people and development. So there are a lot of these courses that helps you find your strengths and all of that. So for me, when I would get those reports, and I always agreed with them because I'm very self-aware, right? The reports just affirmed what I knew. So I'd be like, okay, these are the reports. This is what they say about me. Now, which roles need these strengths? Because I want to be in my lane. I don't want to struggle, Yeah. So I applied to be, I really had to withstand the pressure and not apply to be a service manager, although it would mean more money at the time. I was like, this is not where I want to go. I applied to be a functional coordinator. And what that role really was is more aligned to the strategic aspect of it and more supporting the service centers, the link between business and strategy and the service center. So there's a bit of ops, but there's also a bit of business strategy, and you like the link between the two, right? So that made sense to me because I understand business operations very well. And so this made sense, but that move required me to move to Joburg. Okay. So I had to pack up and leave and go to Joburg. And when I know. At that point, I really went to Joburg wasn't something I'd wanted for myself, but I was like, this is what needs to happen. So here we go. Got to Joburg, got really, assigned projects that I'd be working on. And I really took ownership of it, right? I would get into project meetings and I'd ask questions. Sometimes there's the temptation to shy away and be like, but why isn't anyone else raising this? Surely it's not important because otherwise someone else who's more senior, has more experience would have raised it. But I asked questions, and when things weren't being done the way that I thought I'd take initiative. And I remember there was a benefit that I started working on at the time. Initially, we thought, relatively easy. We can give it to a newbie. Turned out to be nothing but easy. And I took charge of it and I took ownership. And in my first quarter of being a functional coordinator, I was the top performer. 3 months into the role,
3
months into the role, I'm a top performer. And I really, and when people were shocked, I kept telling everybody, I'm like, guys, I didn't leave my home and my family and my friends to come to Joburg and be mediocre. That was not the plan. I've sacrificed.
Amanda, it's very interesting. It's very interesting because, earlier on you were describing yourself feeling because you couldn't carry on at UCT, because you couldn't carry on with your studies of law. You were feeling down. You were feeling as if you are some sort of a failure. But here you are now, being a high performer in a big corporate environment. And it's something that perhaps we need to think about, to really sink our mind into it, that it does not matter if you fail early in your life or you see yourself as a failure in your life. That's not the definition of who you are. And I think that's what you're saying, it basically.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think at that point in my life, I was very clear about who I am. Very, very clear about who I am. And that gave me boldness, right? Because I'm not my role. I'm not my lack of experience. I'm not, the fact that I'm new. I'm God's child. And I always tell myself that there's this song that I love that says, "This is my father's world." Like, my daddy is the ruler of this universe. I have power within me. And I walk into rooms with that power, and I think the thing is, when you take yourself seriously, people take you seriously. Right? And how do you take yourself seriously? It doesn't mean just go be in rooms and be bold when you don't know what you're talking about. You need to know what you're talking about. You need to read. You need to understand your industry. You need to understand what the company needs. And my nature, right? I'm an introvert. Might not look like it now in this conversation, but I am.
Really?
And I don't.
Very hard to believe that.
Introvert. I don't open my mouth unless I know what I'm talking about. So for me to open my mouth in a room like that and speak up, be assured I've read the concept paper, I've researched, I know what I'm talking about, right? So that knowledge and that work that you put in at home, or when you're not in the meeting or in the project, just that research, it empowers you, right? So if you take yourself seriously enough to say, I need to know this thing, when you walk into those rooms, you've got that boldness and people take you seriously. I remember my boss saying to me, "You know what? I keep telling people there's something about this girl. I don't know what it is, but there's something about her." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So for me, it's not even a big thing, because I just do my work and I just want to be the best in what I can do. So that was me. I was a functional coordinator for a year and a half, and I became a functional head. Now, the stream that I look after is the member aspect of it, right? It's probably the biggest stream that exists within client experience, right? So here I am, only a year and a half into the role, which is nothing in terms of tenure to be able to take on this role. Absolutely nothing. All the functional heads before me in this particular stream had longer careers in terms of, but that faith and that boldness to be trusted, with that role. And I remember, my boss at the time who hired me, telling me that, people worry about your tenure, but I reassure them that you can do this, So that for me, and you take it as a responsibility. You don't take it lightly. That kind of trust is not something that you can take lightly, right? I was constantly prayerful about it, and whenever I move into a role, I pray about it. So also in the role, what gives me boldness is the fact that I didn't make this decision by myself. I made this decision with God, right? And constantly you need to ask God, what do you want me to deliver? What am I here? Because leadership is about service. People think leadership, leadership, you're a servant. That's it. When you're a leader, nothing is about you. Nothing.
Yes, it's about you. The others.
A servant, and it's about God equipped me to be able to serve. And in my first quarter as a functional head, I got nominated for a Star Award, again, top performer.
Wow.
So
it's amazing. It's amazing story, Amanda, because and I'm coming now to you, Ntando, because we just need to think about these things, really. I mean, these conversations for me are a learning experience. Now, you were talking about your boss who hired you, telling you that they trust you. It also speaks to those of us who are in senior leadership position to be careful in terms of what we say to people, especially when we think people are inexperienced and new. And because now you're taking those words from what he said and you're using them as the
Running with
supplement.
it.
Exactly. Ntando, okay, I'm gonna give you now. I think you want to say something, but I'm gonna give you. Let me just ask this question.
Okay.
Now, you moved from Cape Town to join this big. It looks like a big firm in the UK. How did that come about, and what do you do there? But perhaps you can start off with what you wanted to say.
Yes, I was just going to say, it's very important what you say about people. As a senior person who has, people that work below you, you are in a very powerful position, because if the right person says the right thing about you, regardless of whether that is true or not, it becomes fact. If I say, Ntando is a safe pair of hands, and I am the head of the department, even people who've never interacted with Ntando, they now know that Ntando is the lawyer to go to. He's a safe pair of hands. They've never interacted with me. They've never worked with me, but because of what you said about me, they form their opinion. Equally, if you say the wrong thing about me, then I get judged unfairly, because you've said. So it's also very important, even for the junior people or junior members of a team, to stand out.
Yeah.
Don't I think people from my background, we are taught never to look at someone in the eyes. You look down.
You look down. Yeah.
Be humble. And we bring that mindset into the corporate space, and then the corporate world is like, dude, you are invisible. We are not feeling it.
We don't feel you here.
It's very important, if you are someone like me, who came from a background of always be respectful. I mean, I remember the first time I went into a vacation scheme, and here there are all these senior lawyers, and you have to call them by their first name. That was very strange experience for me, to be calling someone 50 years my senior, John. Even worse if it's a black. I remember I met a black partner in Sentin, Umandi Sekhusa, and we're in our suits here, but I have to say Mandis to this respectable Xhosa man. I want to put Booty somewhere in there. So it's one of the challenges that we come across, coming from the backgrounds that you come from when you get into the corporate space. But to go back to your question, with Pat, so I actually did not join WBD straight when I came across. I started so when I moved from ENS, I joined a law firm called Clifford Chance. It is one of the biggest international law firms, and they've got a strong presence in the UK. They're called a Magic Circle firm. So one of the really prestigious and large law firms. And I then moved from CC to WBD. And WBD has got more of a transatlantic connection. So what do I mean by that? It is the US UK connect. It's a transatlantic law firm. It's based in the United States and in the UK. So you get where Atlantic comes from, and the work that I do is the same work I used to do at ENS in Cape Town. I do banking and finance work. Banking, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The law as it relates or applies to banking, and the finance, same thing, the law as it applies to finance. But practically, what does that actually mean? So I advise different clients. A large part of the work that I do is acquisition finance. So whenever you see that company X is buying company Y, the money to buy company Y needs to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And it's not 99% of the time, it's not all coming from company X. Company X borrows that money so that it can fund the acquisition. So it's a combination of equity, which is their own capital, and debt, which is bank funding. So I advise on the contractual relationships that I had play there in those mergers and acquisitions. So acquisition finance, and I do a lot of commercial real estate finance at the moment. So if you look around you in Johannesburg, there are all these skyscrapers. If you look around in London, you see all these buildings coming up. In the US, all these buildings coming up. Now, where is the money for those buildings going up coming from? It needs to be financed somehow. And my job is to negotiate those contracts for my clients, whoever my client is in that particular transaction. My client could be the investor giving the money, or it could be the investee, the party that needs the money. So that's in a simplistic way the work that I do.
Sure. And what you guys do is very important in the big scheme of things. I mean, and I'm just thinking to a 10-year-old Amanda and a 9-year-old Ntando playing out there. You ever even thought about the fact that you'd be in those meetings that discuss, client experience for such a big corporate like that, or equity and merger and acquisition deals with big companies in transatlantic? How does that feel?
Before I lose the point, let me jump in there. There's something called impostor syndrome. Impostor syndrome is that feeling that, hey, I feel like I'm a bit of a fake here. I feel like I don't belong in this space.
I will be disturbed.
Right?
I'm going to realize that
we go through those emotions where some of the deals that you work on, you're like, hey, is
it me? Don't swiggle, I'm down.
Okay, so I'm the one running this meeting. All of these people, they are looking to me to give direction. And you feel like, hey, I'm an imposter. So those are the kind of things that we need to overcome. Those are the challenges that you need to overcome, when you work in the corporate space.
Okay. Amand, do you want to say something at this point?
Yeah, no, I think just to agree with Ntando here on that imposter syndrome. And it's important that you overcome it, because if you don't overcome it, you will shrink yourself. You will shrink yourself. You say, I'm not important to raise this issue. I'm not important to do this thing because of that fear. But it's definitely a challenge.
Okay. All right. And I think it's also another important marker to make, because when we were discussing this thing previously, both of you said, listen, when I grew up, I was the same with the other. There's nothing like magically disadvantageous about me, but we're all the same and so fine and so on. But also the mere fact that you, a black woman, Amanda, you're a black man, Ntando, from what is called the former Transkei rural area, that on its own puts you somehow at the back burner. The mere fact that it was a big thing to be in PE or Cape Town, for that matter, into this big, that means that this imposter syndrome, even if you're not aware that it's there, it creeps up from you because of that background. And I think that's what is very important. Let me read some of the messages that are coming through here. There's so many people that are joining. Oscar Duma is watching. Andy Somazoko is watching. Video Fund is watching. Luyanda Moss, welcome guys. Nanku Unaleti Molope Serudu Uti, we pretty much have an idea where we are going with our choice of subject for grade 10 with Humu after listening to this. So Humuke is her daughter. She's listening on her behalf. Thanks so much to the Kulaji and team. Uviwe V Takata is watching. Hello V. Vanessa, Nangu Ntando, Melane, Mfundisi wami uthi awesome conversation. Mishek Shakes Kanzi uthi inspirational interview. Nangebuya umalishwane esithi diversity issues are real. Respect means different things. Nas, I still call them booty on that. And Naledi comes back with the same here. I still say sis, so and so and so and so. These are some of the issues that you're dealing with. But if you're in London, it may mean nothing to say.
They're like, what are you saying, mate?
Give me a new name now. But it's understandable here among us. Excuse me. Oh, Nancy. Anyway, I will come back to this. Okay, Nanku Ubulelwa Ngwenya is watching. Umishek Uti again. Clearly, the omnipotent hand of God is with these movers and shakers you're hosting. You can see that. I'm grateful to be in this session today. Profound Ntando. Gilbert Matit is watching. Anele Jafta is watching. Many people are joining on this session, and I'm just worried that we are fast approaching the end of our time before we get to some of these things. Now, we Amanda, we experience discovery, and you are there inside, and now we hear what goes on in your mind when you're making those decisions, when you're sitting there, and then your client, your legal client is there, and their children can actually see what goes on behind those closed doors, behind the minds of those. And that's very important to understand what goes on in the mind of the people that we see going with nice suits and high heels going into these big firms, only to find out these people that grew up like us. And when they're getting there, they accept themselves, they exercise excellence, and they are not they're proud of who they are, no matter what the background that they're coming from. So I really want to take my hat off to you. Now, let me just make sure that we talk about this. Both of you moved to areas, and how was that shift? How was the culture shock? How was the change? And Ntando, you at that point you had mentioned that some people get scared to even go overseas to work. Let me start with you. How was that? Just briefly, and then to you as well, Amanda.
Well, to be frank, leaving your family and your friends and everything that you know, and starting a life in a country where, the culture is different, and you are moving into a very fast-paced and a stressful career. It is quite daunting. There's even something called here, we call it the SAD, SAD. Apparently, it's an actual condition. I'm not sure. There's a depression that you go through,
yes,
for at least a year. And that is just from the lack of vitamin D.
Oh, yeah.
Because the winter here is not like what you experience back home. The winter is winter here. It gets dark. The days are short.
Yeah.
You can be really sad and depressed because you leave for work. It's dark. You come back from work. It's dark. So you are like, what is happening? so it's those little things. Even the language, you think moving to the UK, if you speak English, the English from here is a different English. So you pick up. So I remember, one time I was talking about pens. I said to someone, I'm just going to try on a pair of pens.
Yeah.
And I could see they've got a puzzled look. Why would you say that to me, Ntando? Because here, if pants is what you wear under your trousers.
It's underpants.
Yeah. Pants and trousers are two different things. So you need to navigate these things. Think for example, to travel, in London, very few people use cars. We all use the underground. You might meet someone whom you know on the underground and you want to start up a little conversation. Culturally, it's just not done. If I meet you with pet and I know you, at best I might just acknowledge you and then look away and read my newspaper. Because people are very protective of their private space. So there are a lot of things that you learn as you go along.
Yeah.
Even the accent. I mean, sometimes when I come back to South Africa, people tell me I've developed a bit of an accent. I'm not sure, but I can believe it, because if you are spending so many hours with people with a particular accent, your words are bound to transition at some point. So, I mean, it's been a lovely experience. I've really enjoyed it. And I think for me, the best thing about being in London is how easy it is to travel the rest of the world, because it's centrally located. Africa is right around the corner. Europe is right around the corner. The United States is just behind you. So it's been a good experience so far.
Wow. Uthi apha to you. Uthi you angisahleki mntaka Siswana. Kuhleka ezinto zithetha ezepens.
This is Kwaga giving up on
How was Joburg for you, Amanda? Because I've just joined you in Joburg, but how was it for you?
I came to Joburg kicking and screaming just because of my career, because the decision I had to make. But I think coming in, I'd emotionally prepared myself, right? For the fact that I'm going into a place where so when I would come to Joburg for work, maybe for like a couple of days before, like the minute I would land in Joburg, like the air was different. Like my nose is dry. Like I would react to being in Joburg. And I'm like, now I'm going to go live
there.
In that place. But it really didn't turn out to be as bad as I thought. You miss home a lot, definitely. The things that you would be able to do in Cape Town, like it's a weekend, let me go visit so let me go visit my family. But there's no one here, right? So I just had to, what helped me was because I was studying again. So I was busy, right? And I was just intentional about, creating healthy habits just for myself, just for my own mental space, and just keeping in contact. Like I speak to my sisters all the time, we video call all the time. It's as if they're not even, in different cities. So just knowing that because I'm moving into this space, I'm likely to feel this way, right? And knowing what am I actually going to do about it, right? Because it's not like it was a shock how I landed in Joburg. I'm feeling lonely. I didn't expect to feel lonely. Obviously, I was going to feel lonely. So just leveraging it. It helps also that I had some friends that were already here. So just leveraging around that and just keeping front and center why I came here. It really helped me to settle and to transition. The one thing though, I just kept saying that I recently moved to Joburg for years. Even now, sometimes I find myself saying I recently moved to Joburg when 3 years or 4 years, I don't know, because it still feels recent. But I must say that I managed to adjust, and I think it's because I'd prepared myself. The move to Joburg came after a while, even before making the decision. I'd prepped myself for months before even applying to say, "Are you ready?" And when I got to a point where I felt like, okay, now I think I'm ready, then I applied. That preparation and that mind shift really helped.
Okay, because I think it's another important point also for people. Some people are stuck in one place all their lives, and the fear of moving to another place can be paralyzing, such that people do not take the opportunity to grow. We're wrapping up this conversation, which is really, really, really powerful. And now we have followed your journeys from when you were young to your school times. We've journeyed through your subjects that you did, your qualifications, and now we're now turning to the question how young people, especially young people, Black people, can equip themselves for success in life anywhere. What are some of the things that come to your mind that people need to focus on? We may not all focus on the same qualification, but there may be certain things that people need, or certain principles that people. Sorry, what are those? Let's start with you, Ntando.
I'm reminded of an incident that happened in my matric year. There was my economics teacher, Mr. Elemu, who has since passed, when we had written a test, he would hand out the scripts, and then after he's handed out the scripts, he would talk us through the test, what you should have gotten a mark for, or what he marked you down for, etc., etc. And in this particular test, I had gotten the highest score in the class, and I was feeling really happy about that, and very self the way. and as he's going through the test, telling you where you should have gotten a mark, etc., etc., I realized that even though my score is the highest in the class, there's an extra 2 marks that I could have gotten. And so after the class, I go to Mr. Elim and I say, sir, look, there's an extra two marks here, and I think Mr. Elim could tell that I think this one, if I can.
Yes.
And Mr. Elimu, he was such a parent. He nipped it in the bud. He said to me, okay, yes, I see, Mr. Siswana, I see these marks that you should have gotten. I'm not going to give them to you. He said, I want to tell you something. You see this class of yours, you're not competing with these people in this economics class. You're not competing with the people here in Butterworth. You are competing with the entire world. So don't have an overinflated sense of yourself. Calm down, have a clear mind and take it from there. And I went home and I did not understand what Mr. Elimo was instilling in me. But now when I look back at my life, if you walk into a room, I'm probably not going to be the person that stands out as, the brightest or whatever. But I know within me, I can outwork the hardest worker. I can, if it means I need to put in 5 times the hours to achieve the same result as you, without making a noise, I will do that. And so I think I would say, you just need to know that you're not just competing with what you can see. The whole world is competing for the opportunities that you want. And so you need to actually work hard. There's no substitute for hard work. Life deals us different cards, right? And we can only play with the cards that we've been dealt. So, other people, they get dealt very good hands. And it does not matter what they do, they can't lose the game because the hand they've been dealt is so good. That's just a crash course in privilege. That's what privilege is. That you can't stuff it up. But if you know that the hand that you have been dealt, it requires work. You need to put in that work to try and turn the odds around. And I think that's what I have been able to do in my life from what I can tell. That, there are so many odds that were stacked against me. I've come from an underprivileged background. The color of my skin predisposes me to, to many things. Being raised by a single mother with no, strong family, with no strong father figure, all of those things, there are odds which could have predispositioned me into one direction or another. But being deliberate and being self-aware and knowing that no one is going to come for you, you need to come for yourself. And I think that's the advice that I would give to young people. No one is going to come for you. You need to play the hand that you've been dealt as best as you can.
Wow, thank you so much, Ntando, for that. Amand?
Yeah, I think for me, it goes back to identity. I think for young people, know who you are. Like, know who you are, know the essence of who you are. You are not any of these things that you're pursuing. You are the person that allows all of these things to manifest, right? Whatever, like Ntando was saying, whatever hand you've been dealt, you need to have enough faith in who you are and what God has instilled in you to know that you can navigate any of these situations. If for me today, all of this were to be stripped away, take away my title, take away my role, take away what I do, and I have to start from scratch, I've got no stress because the same person who did it once is the same person that can do it all over again. So when you have confidence in who you are, the situation around you doesn't stress you because you have the ability to respond. That's one thing that I've learned in life is that the ability to respond. Whatever hand you have, you are in a what now moment, right? I expected for things to go this way. When I started out, when I left high school, I had no idea. I thought my life was going to play out the way Ntando's life has played out. Go to varsity, be a lawyer, and it didn't turn out to be like that. But it's still great. Different can still be great. Like we have a lot of people leaving varsity with dreams and they get to the corporate world and they realize that what they thought it was is not what it was. That's not the end of the world. You just at a what now moment, right? And we'll get a lot of those in life. I'm here. It's not what I thought it would be. What now? What am I going to do about it? How am I going to respond? Some situations you can't change. You have to accept. Some of them, however, we have more choices than we think. We just limit our mindset. We have more choices than we think. And that's really important. And with you knowing who you are, that's not licensed to be lazy. Can't say I'm God's child, therefore I'm not going to work. No, you are going to work because you are God's child, because God is not lazy and he does not have lazy children. Therefore, you cannot say, I am this and still not work. So work hard, perfect your craft, because when you do that, that's what gives you the boldness to do the things that you want to do. Because if you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to shrink. If you don't understand the environment, if you don't understand your own company, and understand your own company, regardless of whether you are a CA, the CEO, or a call center consultant, understand what does this company stand for? What does this company represent? Because that's the only way that you'll be able to find your place within that company, right? And understand the role that your small part, how does it fit into the bigger picture? I was told of a story. I can't remember where I read this or who told me this, but there was a man who, when NASA was preparing to take a man to the moon, he was asked, "What do you do?" Right? He was a janitor. He was a cleaner, basically. And his response was, "I'm helping to put man on the moon." He understood. Yes, I'm here. I'm cleaning, but my cleaning adds to. And when you see yourself like that, you will clean those floors like nobody's business. So I think sometimes we don't understand how we fit into the bigger picture, right? And therefore we don't take ourselves seriously. And when you don't take yourself seriously, no one's going to take you seriously. God won't do for you what you can do for yourself.
Sure. Wow.
He won't.
Wow.
He will watch you and you will pray till you are blue in the face. He will say, you can do this for yourself. This does not need supernatural power. Work hard, especially as Black people, right? We want transformation. We want things to change. And our role is to make sure that when we do get into those positions, show the world what Black people can do. Show the world that Black people can be excellent, even if that's all you do. For me, I'm not an activist anywhere. You won't see me going, Black people rights and all of that. But by my excellence, I've got one goal. The Black child needs to look up at me and have hope.
Sure.
The Black child needs to look up and say, there's someone that looks like me, and they're actually doing great, and break these stereotypes that we get these roles because of BEE and transformation and all of that. When you get there, and by the way, don't be ashamed if you get those roles because of that, because it is the right thing to do, right? We do need support as Black people. But when you also get there, having been given that opportunity, shine. Right? Take it and really represent, because there are a lot of people that are looking up at you, and it's our responsibility to change the narrative.
Wow. This fits exactly the purpose of this platform. Because this platform is a moment of insight and growth. This moment basically is there to inspire people, to say there are people that look like you, that grew up in the same conditions like you did, like you are. But we may not see them on TV, we may not see them everywhere else. When they come to our churches, they come and sit down and they don't say anything. But when they do something in where they are excelling, and And I like the words where you were saying people take you serious if you take yourself seriously as well. And I think that's very, very important. I'm going to now read the last messages here and come to you guys if you have got one last thought that you want to share, and then we release everyone. Let me just read here. I can see Asipuko Lomputa is here. Welcome. Unwabi Samali is here. Utu Anda Nusani Kalela Bantu Basekapa. There is life outside of Cape Town. Monezi Nhleka ndiyazi uba umamele na. Uthembazana Ngalwana uthi these are conversations that matter to us. Thank you for this. Umntu uyafunda. Thank you so much Mfundisi. Appreciate that. Nanku uFefi uma Dalisa Mgongo. Madoda. Kunye noLeta ndiyathemba nikhona nonke apho. Nanku Anele Jafta uthi no substitute for hard work. Indeed. Ability to respond, taking some of the words that you were saying there. I see here that Untabile Dokas Bukoto is watching, Ntando Melani is watching, Sandisiwa Mamia Uchi understanding the bigger picture. Thank you, Amanda. You are competing against the world. Thanks, Dan, the big up team. Guys, people are motivated and inspired by your life story. And basically that's what we want to achieve. We want to say to someone out there, you know, there are people, ordinary people like you and me, that are making a difference in your life. Maybe you want to wrap up and say a few last thoughts as we are closing our session today. Thanks. Who wants to go first?
I think the message from today's session is that, one, you can do more than you think you can, right? And sometimes you are unsure. It's okay to not be certain all the time, but do something. I think there was a song, EBCT, you might not be entirely sure, right? And you might not have all of the facts and all of the information all of the time, but there is that which you have. And you what have you got in your hand? There's something which you have. Use that which you have and move from there, right? Don't think you'll wait until it's all perfectly sitting in a seamless shape before you do something. Do something. And just, on careers, I normally say to young people when I speak about them, to be perfectly blunt, the job that you do is central to your life, because it will determine what breakfast you will have. It will determine what supper you will have. If you have children, it will influence what schools you will be able to take them to. It will inform what clothing you will be able, in a very simplistic and a blunt way. Now, how can you take something that influences such a wide aspect of your life and you leave it to chance, right? And the message, therefore, is think about it. Be deliberate, be intentional, and say, okay, what am I doing with my life and why? If you don't have the information, if you don't have all of the facts, you don't have to know everything. You just need to have the ability to know how to find out. There's people, I normally say, I might not know it, but I have the skills to find out. We are living in the information age. We have internet, we have people. We are very connected. We are more connected today than we've ever been in the entire history of humanity. So the information is there. The tools are there. It just requires you to get up and go to it.
Thank you. Thank you, Danda. The last word to you, Amanda.
I think, one thing that's very important, right, to add to what Ntando was saying, start with what you have. Right? as you go through that journey, there will be trials, there will be difficulties, there will be bumps. But there's one thing that you need to remember. We have a very clear distinction between perception and reality, right? There will be times where you feel like you are dying, but the reality is you are not.
You are not.
There will be times
Fatu.
you're not. There will be times where you feel unimportant, but reality is you're not. There will be times where you have to move forward when you feel like quitting, right? But the reality is there's more for you. There's more for you to move forward for than to quit for. So for me, I always remind myself, right now I feel like I can't, but I know I can. Right? Sometimes it doesn't make the feeling go away, by the way, Nate. Doesn't make over time, if you keep telling yourself that, right? Remember, you're reinforcing what you believe, right? So when you go through these challenges, right, there'll be that voice in your head that says, you know what, you've just graduated, you can't find a job, your life is over. Your life is not over. Accept that I feel like my life is over. But the reality is my life is not over. I always get encouraged when I'm in those moments, right? With the realization that when Jesus uttered the words, my God, why have you forsaken me? He was going through a perception versus reality moment. Because it felt like God had left him. It felt like, God, you do not care about me. You have forsaken me. But we know that that's not possible. God had not forsaken him. But with him and his humanity at the time, it felt like it. So we're definitely going to go through those moments. Don't expect it to be rosy. And when it's hard, trust the person and the essence of who you are. And remember that you need to feed that person. In the good times, when things are great, read, exercise, focus on your health. Because there are times when you're down in the low and you're literally drawing from the investments that you did previously because there's nothing to draw from now. So continue investing in yourself, continue empowering yourself, and just you are all you have in terms of navigating through this life, and you are enough. You are enough.
Sure. What a great selection of powerful speakers today. Man, I can sense that lawyers can speak well, eh?
I actually write better than I speak.
Oh man, but what we can experience today is really, really great, and it is really great to hear. And the fact that even though you dropped that law there, Amanda, you finally did it. So it does not matter, what happened. So guys, I won't keep you longer. Let me just say that Vanessa says God doesn't want lazy children. Sisibaxolile uthi, thank you, Amanda and Ntando, for motivating us. I really enjoyed being called Sisi M7 by the people who were as young as my children. You know what you're talking about, Amanda. Wow, that is my philosophy too. You are competing against the world. Wow, I'm adopting that. Enkosi Katyen for this platform. Indeed, Enkosi Kakhulu Sisibaxolile, and to everyone else who has decided to come and grace this meeting with us today. And I really want to thank our guests, Ntando and Amanda. I really want to thank you. You could have been out there doing whatever you like doing with friends, with family, but you spent this hour just to try to be here with us. And I really appreciate that, because you're investing not only in myself, but you're investing in so many, many people. And I want to thank you so much for that. And for those people that are here, let me just close by saying, I invite you, my guests, to please subscribe to Kulati Coaching and Consulting YouTube page, and then to also the viewers that are out there, please go there and subscribe. We just want to make sure that a positive message in South Africa has to go out. We are so bombarded with the negative, with the fires, with the burning, and all of that kind of stuff. We need to hear good stories, and here they are. And today you talked about, no one of you was saying, I'm going to depend on this politician or on that corrupt deal. You are saying this is what you are going to do yourself with God's help. So thank you so much, guys. May the Lord bless you. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And to those of you at home, thank you so much. Andy B is coming back to beautiful session indeed. Umthobeli Barrington, thank you, sir. Thank you so much, guys. All the best. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much. We'll be in touch. Okay. Thank you. Let me thank everyone again at home. Sorry if I didn't read your message. Apologies. It was not by intention, but thank you so much for joining us. All the best.